Media at SAFM with Ashraf Garda. Exploring every media platform and industry. Only on 104 to 107.
All right, I thought I'll chat to him from Nigeria, but he's in South Africa. Willy Seyama is the founder, CEO of E-Initiate with a small E and a big N. The way you would say like isiZulu, something along that line. Okay. Willy, good chatting to you. Hi.
Good morning, Ashraf. It's good to be on your show.
Right, thank you. So you want to talk about the trouble with social ROI. Goodness, what do you mean by that?
Correct. Basically, the social ROI speaks to what is the measure that companies are using to determine the impact of social media on their business. Interestingly, ROI in a generic sense is really a profitability measure.
Absolutely.
That looks at whether you are earning more revenue from the cost that you are incurring as a company. The bean counters have always argued that it's got to be in pure financial terms. And this is where marketing has always had issues, because I'm sure you will know the saying that 50% of our marketing is a waste, but we don't know which 50% this is.
And do you agree with that, or you think that's just like a cop-out?
You see, from a pure financial person's perspective, it is correct. But from a marketer's perspective, it is not the correct statement, because you're not necessarily wasting the money. And this is where then the aspect of social media comes in, because the question you must be asking is, what is the downside if you didn't market at all? Because that really puts matters into perspective. So the social media ROI specifically really speaks to the fact that you are trying to understand the efficiency of social media insofar as your brand is concerned, and it means different things to different people, and this is what makes it a bit difficult, because with the traditional social ROI, it's really simple. Did you make money from the cost that you spend?
Okay, so let's apply. So when we're talking social ROI, let's just confirm we are talking social media ROI.
ROI,
right?
correct.
So why would the same question not be applicable? Did you make money out of your social media campaign?
It's because there are a lot of variables in this formula that you can't ignore. And a good number of those variables, unfortunately, are actually non-financial. One of which, we were speaking about Ford Cougar not so long ago. The question is, if Ford chose not to be on social media, which by and large they did, what would have been the negative impact? Because they were not there to basically defend their brand. So bringing it all the way back, it really speaks to the fact that you need your brand to have a contact with the consumers, because we know the impact of the word of mouth in this day and age. Think of how important the online reviews have become to the hotel industry, or should I be saying the hospitality industry as a whole. If you ignore those non-financial aspects of ROI, you're running the risk that you will stick to the resin sense, which then speaks to social selling, as opposed to connecting with the consumers.
All right, that's an interesting point. But by the way, if you have any strong views on social ROI or social selling, another buzzword here, feel free to connect 0891 104 207 on air. Otherwise, tweet, and I love it when people quote tweet what the guests say. So quote tweet a pleasure using hashtag media show, and you can tweet to me, Ashraf Garda, as well as to SAFM Radio. But if you have strong views on this issue, feel free to do that. Okay, so that's interesting. I mean, just explain on that last point.
Okay. Basically what then happens is, when you start looking at how consumers are engaging with your brand, what are they saying about it? You are making sure that you have a better understanding of the whole journey, the consumer journey. Because surely consumers have to hear about your brand before they can start buying it. And unlike it used to happen in the past, where the only way consumers could hear about you initially anyway, about your brand, was through advertising. Now they are finding out about your brand from their friends and family and everybody else in the online space. So if you're not there yourself to, at the least, listen to what consumers are saying about your brand, you run in the risk. And this is where social media ROI becomes a bit of a challenge for marketers and for bean counters.
So what you're saying is if it's only social media sales versus just social media conversation, that's problematic.
It is. And funny enough, we're finding out more and more that social media is not about selling per se, because think of it this way. You can't sell on Facebook directly. What you can do is direct consumers to a different platform where you can then conclude the sale. What you're trying to do, though, is to entice them to be able to take the step of leaving Facebook to go and buy your product somewhere, whether it is online or offline. So the whole point of social selling on its own is still debatable as we speak. But being that as it may, what we're saying is the key thing that social media can help you with is connecting your brand with the consumers. That's the key part.
Connecting or not disconnecting when things go wrong?
I suppose both ways. But ultimately, I suppose as brands, what we're trying to do is to get them to positively connect. And in cases where there are issues, hopefully you have built enough in your credit bank, as I choose to call it, the emotional credit bank, for them to be able to say, yeah, there are these negative things, but because you have taken the time to connect with them on a positive note, so to speak.
Yeah, good point. What then is the split between, advertising as we traditionally know it, and then advertising on social media?
This is actually an interesting point, Ashraf, because what has been found by eMarketer, which is really one of the authoritative sources in the digital marketing industry, they are actually a research company. They have found that from 2017, which is this year, digital marketing spend will take the largest chunk of ad spend, ahead of TV and the other traditional media.
So that's happening soon?
That's actually happening as we speak. Okay, and funny enough, Salesforce are saying that it has already happened, because as per 2016, digital media and TV were neck on neck, and those are the biggest contributors to ad spend. So from 2017, it is predicted that actually digital will go ahead of all the media channels, and in fact grow steadily to 2020, where every $4, because this is a global study, every $4 of marketing spend will go to digital. The rest will then go to the other channels. And TV, interestingly, will only be a third of that chunk. So what it tells us is there is a definite shift of ad spend from a traditional marketing, and specifically TV in this case, because we know that the other non-TV traditional channels have been declining. Print, there's a lot of print publications that have been closing down as we speak. So what we see is that there's a shift of spend, and that is happening because marketers are starting to follow where consumers are, because increasingly consumers are in the digital space. They are not in the non-digital space as used to be in the past. Now, contrast this with two interesting elements, Ashraf. The one is because consumers are spending more and more time in the digital space, that's where you have to be. But the second thing is the attention span is actually declining. This was found by the Canadian researchers not so long ago.
Right.
So we know that the animal that has the shortest attention span up until now, which is 9 seconds, is the goldfish. But it has been found that humans in the last 5 years have moved from 12 seconds to 8 seconds.
Okay, but is this the attention span generally, or the attention span in terms of humans looking at, say, advertising versus looking at social media, or what?
Now, this is the attention
You're
span.
going to come with it? Yeah, go ahead.
This is the attention span generally, and think of it this way. Advertising is actually seen as a nuisance by consumers on social media. So if the attention span is declining, it means that advertising runs the risk of incurring the bigger part of this wrath, whether it is on TV or it is online. So what is the point? The point about this is, if marketers don't ensure that they understand the non-financial aspects of their social media ROI and focus only on the financial aspects, they're going to miss the other parts of the picture. It can be debated whether that picture is bigger or smaller, but they are missing out on the part of that picture.
Who's doing it right? Who's getting it right?
Well, we have a couple. Now, when I first heard that Coca-Cola are moving from traditional marketing as we know it to content marketing, I thought, we're having this big train taking this new turn, and if Coca-Cola can do this, a lot of the other brands would actually be turning a corner too. KLM is another example. They're doing a great job insofar as digital media are concerned. Mm-hmm. In South Africa, top of my head, at this stage, interestingly, the likes of Nando's are doing a better job of it. Telecoms companies are not doing such a bad job in South Africa, but they're still on the traditional side of things, unlike I would like them to be. But that's kind of the space that we're seeing right now.
All right. So I mean, let's just recap some of the big takeouts then for you that's emerged from this study, the trouble with social ROI, Willy.
I went through 5 annual social media reports from Content Marketing Institute, HubSpot, Social Media Examiner, Insight, and Salesforce. Those who are in this space will tell you that these are really reputable organizations, and they've been doing this for quite a few years. What they have indicated, even to this day, is that 2 out of every 5 marketers cannot measure the impact of social media. So, if you ask the practitioners, why is it that this is a problem? We'd tell you that actually marketers can. But there are 4 key questions which I'll rattle through quickly, which they must ask. The first one is, do they know how social media work? 2, are there social media objectives in place, and are these integrated in the overall brand communications mix? 3, are there proper key performance indicators and associated targets in place? And the last one is, are the marketers using effective tools to measure achievement of their objectives? Because we tend to find that, we kind of throw money at it and see what happens, as opposed to being very deliberate.
You need to be deliberate.
Absolutely.
Okay, is there any final point you wish to make?
Really, the final point is marketers need to be working closer with the practitioners and ask the hard questions. This is not a fluff type of activity. It's a kind of activity that should give return. The only thing is, don't always expect that it will be in pure financial terms. Okay,
so therefore the issue of measurability is another whole point. But Willy Seyama, thanks for your time from Initiate, and I know you will tweet all that we've just spoken about and a whole lot more, right?
Certainly.
So we'll look out for that for you from a listener point of view. Just check it out on my timeline, Ashraf Garda, SAFM Radio, but also your thoughts on that #media show.
104.4, the home of SAFM in Durban. SAFM, South Africa's news and information leader.